So, ladies and gents, Dimitri is joining me, and we're going to get stuck into many different things. You've even brought me a present, which actually, in nearly 2 years of doing a podcast, that's the first present a guest has brought me. So,
Whoa.
thank you. You are the first.
You're welcome, mate.
Yeah, really happy with that.
Before any of your to-dos, before anyone's like, can I borrow you for a half an hour meeting? Before anything of that kicks in, you've already overcome something challenging that makes you feel great as well.
Yeah.
And then the big three is the sunlight for alertness and dopamine, which is that motivation hormone. We want that. The energy that comes from the workout. And then if you compare onto that a protein intake in the morning, which is going to keep your blood sugar stable. Because what happens to people after lunchtime, that afternoon like slump that that a lot of people get, if we're able to get a high protein meal in the morning, which is lower in carbs and more higher in protein. So that's like things like, your whole eggs and avocado and those
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
It's very good for you.
Yeah.
Those healthy fats. That's going to keep you more stable throughout the day. So then by the time you get to the evening, you've crushed something that the sunlight is great for that alertness. You've crushed your workout and you've also done great on your nutrition. Those things are going to help you last a lot longer into the evening and, the late afternoon when it comes to other projects you want to put time into.
So the principle of this podcast is, I think in modern day life, there's a lot of people that are striving to do a lot of things, and we're talking directly to property investors, and you've got a bit of a sort of background and experience from an agency world as well. But the main thing for me and why I wanted to get you on is I think sometimes people want to do something, but there's so much going on in our busy lives that we can get quite tired, get quite kind of frustrated with certain things. And potentially it's kind of that whole process of healthy body, healthy life, can make a big difference. So a little bit of a curveball episode today, but I'm really looking forward to it. And someone that's into their health and fitness, I'm looking forward to prodding you on a few questions as well. But first of all, how are you?
Very well, thank you, mate. I'm glad you enjoyed the present as well, and hopefully you like it. And I think, I'm doing great, and I love this topic just because, one, I resonate with the type of people that I work with, which is entrepreneurs or business owners and people who invest in that, come under that as well. And I really enjoy the game of problem solving with people or solution finding, where you said people do want to do more things with their lives. And if we can't because of various things that come up, such as fatigue or, such as, overwhelm, or the things that we'll dive into in the podcast, is just enjoying that problem solving side of things with clients. And where I found that to be particularly useful in myself, and I'm always experimenting on myself, it's great to be able to share that as well. So yeah, I'm great. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, very welcome. So let's dive straight into that subject then. I know a lot of investors that, they're business owners. They're running a busy life of normally, being an employee at a high level, or they've got their own business and they're kind of looking to use some of their business funds to invest. They've probably got a family at home as well. So they're hectic lives on the go. They want to get into property investing because they know it's a solid place to put your money. Sometimes they struggle with the thought of getting started, and sometimes it's just, almost being in a position of maximizing their time becomes very difficult at the end of the day. So what would be the kind of the quick win health tips that you would give to someone that is probably getting towards the end of the day and they're just finding they've got no energy when it hits like 5 o'clock to then go and start trialing through the internet, looking for property investments and strategizing some sort of portfolio plan? What advice would you give to that type of person?
That's a really good point, because the question almost becomes, is it a case of time, or is it the quality of the time we have available? And if, as you mentioned, it is getting towards the end of the day where, they've run their business at the start of the day, but they do want to allocate more of their resources and time towards this thing, is how can we improve the quality of their time? And for a lot of that, it comes down to improving their mental performance and improving their energy. And those sorts of things can come from, for example, what I focused on with clients is what we call like meta habits. So meta habits would be a habit that is not just like a one and done, but is a habit that can improve all the other areas throughout their day as well, and gives you like a lot of yield for your effort. So you mentioned being able to allocate effort at the end of the day, But a lot of the quick win habits that would really help that would actually come in earlier on in the day.
Yeah. I've found that myself, because I'm a fan of intermittent fasting. I've done it for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I change it when I've got a long run booked in, because I'm into my running. So for example, tomorrow I've got a long run, so I don't intermittent fast today. I make sure I get the glycogen into my body for the run tomorrow. But typically speaking, I will intermittent fast, which I do 12 till 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start eating at 12 in the day and I'll finish at 8. And what I find is I've got a lot more mental performance, and I've got a lot more kind of energy in the afternoon compared to a lot of other people, where my body's not been digesting all morning.
Mm-hmm.
Get up and, people start throwing toast and things like that down their bodies at the early hours of the morning. I don't do that. But from your point of view, as a sort of specialist in this area, what would be the advice? Is it what someone's eating? Is it when they're eating it? How does someone feel at the end of the day? They've still got couple of hours where they can really be at a high level of mental performance before winding down for the evening.
Exactly, yeah, and it makes sense why they would want that to capitalize on that time before family time, etc. So coming back to those meta habits, the habits that will really help move the needle, for example, a couple things that they could do or pair together earlier on in the day would be morning sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how deficient you are with the effects that can increase your dopamine, which is that motivation neurotransmitter. So if we want more of that, we want to be more motivated and more energetic, that can increase that by 50% by getting in morning sunlight. I know it's England, so it's not going to be perfect.
Is that just daylight in general, or does the sun have to be shining?
It can't be behind a window. So
Yeah.
So it has to be outdoors. If it's overcast, that might mean you'll be closer to 15 minutes outside. If it's sunny, you'll probably be closer to 5 minutes outside.
Okay, as little as that.
Yeah. Because the way the photons, like, you receive those through your eyes, are a lot obviously brighter when we're so lucky to have a sunny day.
Yeah.
So getting in that morning sunlight, which could be ideal in a way of a walk, for example, if they have a dog or something, to walk the dog in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
A morning workout as well. So the sunlight would be within 1 hour of waking up, because that would have the effect on alertness and energy for the rest of the day if done within an hour of waking up.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's the garden call or if it's a walk, even better. The exercise in the morning, although we technically are stronger in the afternoon to train,
Mm-hmm.
actually by exercising in the morning within a couple hours of waking up means that the effects on alertness and energy for the rest of the day will have the greatest effect if you can do it then. And when we say working out, a lot of people are busy, right? So even 25 or 30 minutes, even a little and often approach like that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be an ultra, athlete or anything like that. Even just that little and often approach, which can even be done at home if it needs to be, because you will get a great effect from doing so, will really, really help.
Yeah, people could go for a sort of power walk in the morning with some, podcast listening, listen to this podcast maybe.
They should.
Or, you could do some sort of HIIT workout on YouTube. It's probably quite easy to do from home. A lot of people were doing that in lockdown, weren't they? Just Joe Wicks was all over people's YouTubes and, making a win out of the home workout. So sunlight's vital. Getting a workout in as well. I think, for me, just that's a good discipline as well. Like mentally, it's a good discipline to know, right, I've trained early. I think that makes a big difference. Even if I do a short run in the morning, I like to feel that I've started the day with a win.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good momentum, I think.
Before any of your to-dos, before anyone's like, can I borrow you for a half an hour meeting? Before anything of that kicks in, you've already overcome something challenging that makes you feel great as well.
Yeah.
And then the big three is the sunlight for alertness and dopamine, which is that motivation hormone. We want that. The energy that comes from the workout. And then if you compare onto that a protein intake in the morning, which is going to keep your blood sugar stable. Because what happens to people after lunchtime, that afternoon slump that that a lot of people get, if we're able to get a high protein meal in the morning, which is lower in carbs and more higher in protein. So that's things like, your whole eggs and avocado and those avocado.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
It's very good for you.
Yeah.
Those healthy fats. That's going to keep you more stable throughout the day. So then by the time you get to the evening, you've crushed something that the sunlight is great for that alertness. You've crushed your workout and you've also done great on your nutrition. those things are going to help you last a lot longer into the evening and, the late afternoon when it comes to other projects you want to put time into.
Yeah, because I think property investing for a lot of people is a side hustle, and it's fitting it in, and it's also not just fitting it in, but it's having the ability to find the time to put good energy into the planning. And we've spoken about this on the podcast with Mike quite a lot, that property investing is deemed as passive income, but it's not. You have to be quite active as a landlord. So having the time and energy to do it quickly and correctly is really important. One of the things that I saw on, I think it might have been a blog or one of your content that you put out, was talking about kind of just an idiot's guide to personal health, which I quite liked, because I like to think that I've got a bit of insight into it just from someone that's been involved in fitness in somewhere or another of my life. But really, I'm finding new information all the time, and the research and the data is different all the time. But what would be kind of your top 5 quick wins for someone that's looking to just take their personal health to the next level? We spoke about those morning routines, but what would be your quick wins for the average person that's out there?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So again, coming back to where I see clients do the best is where we're able to do those meta habits, the ones we spoke about included, on a consistent level. So it's really being able to find what habits they can do consistently, which are going to give you those benefits over time. So the morning routine is a big one as well. Then when it comes to nutrition, I don't know how many how many aisles supermarkets have these days, but when it comes to nutrition, a lot of the stuff people need to get quick wins is just on really a couple of the aisles when we're looking at whole food based nutrition. So keeping it simple with, a couple palms of protein on your plate, a couple palms of protein, a couple fists of veggies on your plate, and like a couple thumbs of fats. So fats, with the oils or the avocados and things like that.
Yeah.
And, everyone's hands are different. And so that will be reflective of your intake. But doing a minimally processed nutrition in that way, that's going to be a big win, because the latest research shows that people in the UK, their diet consists of now more than 50% ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
For the average person, more than 50%. So then when we look at, you're trying to get ahead on the game when it comes to your mental performance and competing against other investors who potentially have more time than you to look at property opportunities or have more built up relationships, and you're really trying to be active in this game of creating passive income, anything you can do to boost the XP and the strength of your character that's trying to get after it is as advantageous as possible. So those morning habits, powerful. Minimally processed food with those palm portions that I mentioned is generally a good bet.
So let's cover that again. So a palm of protein,
two of them, yeah.
2 palms of protein,
Yeah.
a fist of veggies.
A couple fists,
a couple
veggies.
of fists of veggies, and then a couple of thumbs of fats, good fats.
Exactly, good fats. So that's like grass-fed butter, avocado, olive oil, ghee, like the one I brought you today.
Like
as well.
what we got here. If you're listening and you can't see on the table, Dimitri's brought me in some homemade ghee, which I'm looking forward to using for sure. And on the food that's processed, kind of man-made food, I've tried all sorts of diets over the years and different types of things to either be healthy or to be better at mental performance, better in my career, better as a dad, as a husband, just overall kind of just all round better. There's a lot of plates spinning. One thing that I found with diets is most of them are not sustainable because they're so aggressive. But the thing that I normally have referred back to that does work for me is, if it was made by man, try and stay away from it. And if it came out the ground or grew on a tree, then I don't calorie count that element of stuff. I kind of just go, right, it's good energy, it's going in. If I need it, I need it. And that's something that's really sort of worked for me over the years, is if I feel better, I'm more motivated, I'll train harder, I'll do more, I'll burn more calories, and the weight and the body just works in the way it's meant to work, really. But there's a lot of different aggressive diets out there that potentially aren't the best for people. But from your point of view, I quite like that sort of palm, fist and thumbprint. What about sleep? Is sleep a subject that you talk about a lot with your clients? Because it seems to be quite a popular topic at the moment.
Yeah, so we're almost working through the day in this way of we've got the morning, then we
Yeah.
have the daytime nutrition.
Mm.
As we get into the evening, sleep is one of, if we have like the pyramid, and in that pyramid there's layers of things that are going to help you be more effective in the areas that you want to put effort into. Sleep is like at the bottom, the biggest chunk of the pyramid,
Mm.
and it's so important to get that right. A lot of the things I see that mean that we aren't getting sleep right is normally like working too close to sleep. Like, so you have bedtime 11, doing work that's too close to sleep, screen time that's too close to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
alcohol consumption. Like, although alcohol might make you feel like you can sleep easier in some ways, the actual quality is reduced.
Yeah, it gets you later on.
Yeah, exactly. It gets you later on. Yeah, or
Mm.
in the next morning.
Mm.
And what happens is, although sometimes the screen time or the work, like you just need that extra half an hour or just to do something quickly, sometimes it's really important to check in with self and ask how important it is to be doing that thing at that time,
Mm-hmm.
because that extra half an hour is going to have a much bigger impact on the quality of your sleep. So there's things that we can do that to maximize on the quality of sleep, because as you get older, you actually get less deep sleep. Like, we actually get the most deep sleep in the first 3 decades of our life, and then after that the quality of sleep goes down. So it's important to stay on top of that. So
I do notice that. I mean, my parents often say, and I'm a stepdad and my dad in particular, they're early risers. I mean, my dad, he's in the gym at like 4:30 in the morning,
wow.
not because he wants to be.
Uh-huh.
He's just trained his whole life and he just gets up, at 4 o'clock. And whether it's as you get a bit older, you need the loo in the night a little bit more frequently, which wakes you up. And yeah, it does feel that way. I mean, I've got a real issue at the moment with sleep because I've got a 1-year-old, and
wow.
a 1-year-old. We got a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, so we went through the first 2.5 years with the eldest of the teething and this, that, and the other, and then you think you cracked it, and then we had a second child, and now it's back to that point of we're probably 6.5, 7 hours worth of sleep, and it's often broken as well. But Lily at the moment has decided 5 a.m. she's part of the 5 a.m. club.
Okay.
That's her thing. But she's going to bed at 7 and I'm not. So,
Wow.
she's getting a chunk of sleep, and she has a 2.5 hour nap in the middle of the day, which I also don't, which I would love to
That's a
have, by the way.
luxury. That's
Yeah.
good.
She's living the Ronaldo dream.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, I do feel as a business owner, as a father, and as an ultra marathon athlete, that is what hits me, is the sleep. That's the killer. My legs don't
100%.
recover fast enough for the
Mhm.
training that I'm doing without sleep. So
Mhm.
it's important, isn't it? It's so important. What does the body go through when it sleeps? What actually happens? Why is it important?
Yeah, that's a good question. And when it comes to managing and spinning all those plates, like you said, we can recover less from our training, but also how much more likely are we to be more anxious or handle stress less effectively if we've slept less,
Mm-hmm.
or even just be more snappier in relationships when we've slept less, right? I'm not
Yeah.
myself. I haven't slept enough the last night. So
I mean, at the moment we joke about it in the morning, but yeah, me and my wife are pretty grumpy in the morning because we've had less sleep, right?
before
So,
the coffee, yeah.
So it just is what it is. But that's very common in a lot of families' lives. So
It is.
I'm always interested to know about sleep, and there's some good books and some good people talking about it. It's a subject that's popular out there at the moment, and it is so vital, so important. So with your clients, what are the kind of, I'm not asking you to go through a session, but what are the wins that you've seen recently for your clients? What are the mechanisms and the processes? You talk about meta habits,
Yeah.
dietary related stuff, but
Mhm.
what else are you kind of talking about that's going to help with drive and focus and starting new projects and being able to multitask correctly and the stresses of modern day life? And I guess you've got to talk sort of post lockdown a little bit as well, because that's still got its own fallout mentally for a lot of people, hasn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. The sleep part is also a really big part of that, like we said. And I do see that sometimes, because so many people have families and have youngins, that it can be written off that I'm not going to get good sleep because I've got young kids, and there's no point working on it. But there is things we can do for
Mhm.
sure, and we can get into that. But the things I see in clients, and the things that really help them get great wins, um, strategies that are going to improve their mental performance when it comes to nutrition and training. So those things that we mentioned there. Stress resilience, the era of chronic stress, right, and post lockdown, and the effects that that's had on mental health and stress. So being resilient to stress, because how creative are you going to be? How easy are you going to be able to see through the fog of potential opportunities or actual opportunities when that chronic stress is high? And a lot of us are running at a baseline level of continued sustained chronic stress. So stress resilience. So, habits around mindfulness, habits around taking some time in the afternoon, that is going to help reduce that stress, is going to help us feel more motivated when that's lower. Just being in balance and at peace like we should be.
Mm-hmm.
Like being ambitious doesn't necessarily have to mean being stressed and overwhelmed, right? So
Yeah, I went for a little I guess moment this morning actually where I was out for a run, funnily enough. And what I'd realised this week is I'd done a lot of things. I'd given a lot of time to a lot of other people, and I'd shared experience and shared my time, which obviously comes with sharing experience, but shared my time. Um, I'm sure they were grateful, and I'm sure it was helpful. But what the quandary was for me is that I didn't feel like this week I've achieved as much as I normally would do personally, because I had a lot going on. I've given a lot of time to other people, and I've done a lot of stuff this week where it just hasn't actually given me much momentum. It's just things I needed to do that I've done, but they don't come with a tick in the box or a big win, and it's nice to kind of almost feel on a Friday that it's like, wow, I've had a good week this week. And this week I felt like I've had just a week that's just unfolded. So that's the kind of stress that sometimes you have on yourself.
100%.
Is kind of like, right, I want to feel like I've got a bit more momentum, and that plays a part with a lot of people, I'm sure, that you speak to.
Absolutely, and it's either looking at, of course, in the 52 weeks of the year, is every week going to be, a net, 20% improvement on the week before? Sometimes there is going to be those weeks where that happens. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we surrender to those types of weeks. We can look at, is there anything else that could have been done? Could I have delegated or outsourced some of the things that I wanted to have had done by Friday? And therefore, next time round in that position, and that kind of takes the pressure off from it being a bad week to it just being a learning. Like I learn that if I give my time or do these things, or as we're growing, I have to give my time in this ways. What is that teaching me about how I need to delegate or outsource? Or what is that teaching me on how I could delegate or outsource various other things in the following week? Or can I, for example, when a lot of people give time and spend time with other people, can we do any preparation before those conversations to be able to be more effective? Whether it's walking meetings instead of sit down ones, because they can shorten the time of meetings by up to 50% if we're doing a walking or standing meetings as well than sitting down ones. It's those things on learning from what didn't go well and being able to improve that in the next weeks, from delegation, outsourcing, or just efficiency.
I've been doing a little bit of work for an ex-military guy actually that's starting a business, really cool business that he's got to bring veterans into tech companies, and he's building this business at the moment. But every Zoom that I've had with him has either been standing or walking, and the guy is full of energy. He looks physically like healthy, good. I'm sure deep down inside, I mean, he says, he's doing long days, but he is,
I love it.
9 out of 10 every single minute of that meeting, if not 10 out of 10, because he's just active. He's just doing the right stuff, I would have said.
I love it. One of the things that's really important, that's underlooked and is testosterone, especially for a lot of the gents, as we get plus 30, plus 35, plus 40, to optimizing for testosterone. So that's a lot of what I do with clients as well, in terms of the habits and the things that we work on to optimize that, because the effects that testosterone has on, for ladies and gents, because it does have similar effects. It's just ladies have like 30 times less, but they do have testosterone as well. But especially for the gents, where testosterone is so linked to drive, ambition, and motivation, and those meta habits earlier, and there's some others. If our meta habits can increase and improve our testosterone, then that there's no other skills that have to be acquired. There's no wisdom. It's just by improving testosterone, you're able to improve your drive and ambition as a result of doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Like the studies show that even in healthy guys, the guys that they gave a dose of exogenous, like an injection of testosterone to in this study, were double as resistant to difficult or out of control or stressful situations. So it like doubled their resilience to life situations in the way that they did this study, just through having higher, more optimized testosterone.
Mm.
And that's not kind of looked at enough. And sometimes the symptoms of that being lower can be mistaken for something else as well.
So other than injecting testosterone into your
That's
butt or wherever you put it these
or
days,
it's expensive. Yeah.
what are the ways to naturally increase testosterone in a middle-aged person?
Yeah, absolutely. So sleep is going to be one of the biggest ones you can do,
A
because
lot of it comes back to sleep, doesn't it?
does.
Yeah.
Because your body has these resources to make testosterone with, and the same resources that can make testosterone can also make stress hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're underslept and stressed, your body just won't make testosterone. It will just make the stress hormones instead. So therefore, by sleeping more and being in a less stressed state, instead of that fork in the road channeling them down towards making stress hormones, it will channel them towards making more testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big one. And then strength training, so actually lifting weights. Running in the HIIT is really good, but if we're able to strength train and lift weights at least 3 days a week, brilliant. So you've got sleep, strength training, and then the couple palms of protein, because a lot of people don't get those 2 palms of protein in per meal. If you're able to do that, that's going to complement the sleep and the strength training a lot. Those are some general things that you could say to everyone that would help with testosterone.
I read an article. I might have read an article. I might have listened to a podcast, but I was listening to a podcast where someone was talking in depth about later life in older people and the importance of the aging process being limited through weight training.
Yes.
And I think it was done on like sort of 80-year-old guys, and they were aging and they were frail, and their bone density and their sort of their biological age, if you like, rather than their actual chronological age, was being measured. And they did a study on these guys for like 6 months. It wasn't much longer than 6 months. Mm-hmm. And the difference in kind of their strength in their bones and their biological age just like gone through the roof from just training. Not, they're not like squatting 100 kilos or anything crazy like that, but just from training 3 times a week with weights, with resistance, it had made a huge difference to them. And I guess that comes down to that testosterone. I find when I weight train, more than when I run, but when I weight train, I sleep better that night as well. I always find that if I've done a weight training session at any time in the day, I will always have a better night's sleep that night.
Love that. It depends how you're doing each one, but typically the running can be a bit more of a